Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we raised two teenage sons, so I know what it's like to talk to people who are nevertheless talking at the same time. No. So welcome back this afternoon. I hope you've had a good afternoon in the learning sessions or taking a little bit of a break. We've got several things before us yet. We just showed the video. I'm not sure if people got a chance to kind of listen to that very closely from McMurray, but we also have Ricky Harrison here who wants to bring greetings from McMurray. So let's welcome Ricky Harrison.
Good afternoon. Bishop Schnase, brothers and sisters of the New Mexico Annual Conference, my name is Reverend Ricky Harrison. I have the distinct privilege of serving as the University Chaplain and the Director of Religious and Spiritual Life at McMurray University, which is your United Methodist institution of higher education in Northwest Texas. Thank you. I bring you greetings this afternoon from your siblings in Christ and the Northwest Texas Annual Conference, as well as the soon-to-be Horizon Texas Annual Conference, as well as our university president, Dr. Sandra Harper, who you heard just a few moments ago by video. She regrets that on her last year, before she culminates her 11 years in the presidency at McMurray, when she retires this January, a cumulative 20 years of service to McMurray University and to United Methodism in Texas and New Mexico. I bring you greetings from her as she's not able to be with us. McMurray just celebrated 100 years of mission and ministry across Northwest Texas and New Mexico. And this past spring, at the culmination of our centennial celebration, McMurray established the SM and Inez J Society, a way to recognize our pillars of philanthropy, those individuals, alumni, friends, and organizations who over the course of their lifetime have made gifts in excess of $1 million to the university. These are gifts that support scholarships, that supports student opportunities. We just got back a few weeks ago from taking 18 students on a spiritual pilgrimage trip to walk the last 70 miles of the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain. And that trip was made possible with $2,000 scholarships from congregations across Northwest Texas and New Mexico so those students could participate in life-changing spiritual opportunities like that. Among the inaugural class of the J Society is the New Mexico Annual Conference. We are, McMurray University, incredibly grateful for the long history of generosity that has helped make our mission and ministry possible. If you are an alumni or have a child or grandchild who has come through the halls of McMurray over the past 100 years, would you stand for just a moment? We've got a few in the house. McMurray is so grateful for our relationship with the United Methodist Church because we know that through our halls have come those clergy and lay leaders who have gone to lead our congregations and who over the next 100 years will continue to lead our church into the future that God has for us. And so this afternoon, on behalf of President Sandra Harper and our Vice President for Institutional Advancement, Mr. Michael Hutchison, we are proud to present the New Mexico Annual Conference with this token and appreciation of their gifts over your lifetime to McMurray University and your induction into the J Society Pillar of Philanthropy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you, Ricky. Thank you for your work.
It's quite heavy, so.
Yes, it is.
Thank you all.
Let's express our appreciation to Ricky for being here. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the Council of Finance and Administration report, and John Nash, who's the pastor of Los Alamos, is going to walk us through this.
Bishop Schnase, members of the cabinet, members and delegates to the annual conference. As Bishop said, I'm Reverend John Nash, serving as your chair of the Conference in Finance and Administration, also known as CFNA. also serving as pastor in Los Alamos. We have several resolutions we are bringing before you this morning, or this afternoon, that we'll be voting on. And I have some bad news and some good news, but I'd like to start with a joke, a famous one from Flip Wilson. One Sunday morning, a minister was working on getting his congregation fired up to do God's work in the world. And he said, if this church is going to serve God, it's got to get down on its knees and learn how to crawl. And the congregation, showing that they're paying attention, said, make it crawl, preacher, make it crawl. And he said, and if this church once it's learned how to crawl, it's got to get up on its feet and learn how to walk. And the congregation says, make it walk, preacher, make it walk. And then he starts yelling, says, and if this church, once it learns how to walk, it's got to learn how to run. The preacher says, make it run, make it run. And he said, and once it learns how to run, it's got to learn how to dig deep in its pockets to learn how to give. And there's silence. And someone yells out, make it crawl, preacher, make it crawl. So we stand on the precipice of the unknown. And if that makes you uneasy, I can tell you those of us who are involved in finance are even more queasy, because what we like to do is to forecast what the future looks like based upon what has come before, to make educated guesses about how we move forward. But we as your CFNA are having a hard time doing that because we can't look backwards, because we're not even comparing apples to apples anymore financially. We're comparing oranges to bicycles. And so while we do the best that we can, a lot of what we do are just educated guesses at this point. You will find the CFNA report starting on page 13 in the pre-conference journal. And I am not going to go into details there with the expectation that we have read this in advance of today's meeting. But as I said, I have some bad news and some good news, so let's start with the bad news. The first is that the income that the local church reports on line 52 of the annual statistical reports, which is the income for the local church, has continued to decrease every year for more than a decade. It is down more than 50, or nearly 50% from what it was in 2012. And the churches who disaffiliated only exacerbated that already negative trend. Those churches who left the annual conference and the denomination represented 40% of the income we received in our last full year together. So even if every remaining faithful church were to pay 100% of their tithe and more, we are not going to regain those financial numbers for income. Additionally, many of our faithful churches were greatly impacted by disaffiliation, which changed their economic realities, and many of them cannot give, at least for the foreseeable future, at the same level they had been giving before through the tithe model. And please note that this is not unique to this annual conference. Every annual conference, to some degree, is experiencing this same thing, regardless of disaffiliation. As was reported yesterday, the General Conference voted to approve a budget that was 42% less than it was in 2016. If I got the number correctly, and Kendall, you can tell me if I'm wrong, the Rio, Texas Conference just passed a budget that was $1.6 million less than the year before. This is the reality that everyone is dealing with. That's our bad news. And we can respond to that by burying our heads in the sand, pretend that's not happening. We can cry, woe is me, that we're all doomed, it's all going to fall apart. Or we can claim a belief in a God who can redeem all situations and who has a big, bold, beautiful future set out for us. And we can begin to rethink, reimagine, renew, and reinvigorate what we do as an annual conference. So here is the good news. We're here. We are faithful. We are making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And our financial resources we have on hand today will empower us for a few more years if we are proactive to make the changes we need in order to be able to power this conference for generations to come. But we will have to make some changes. And we have to make these changes sooner than later because our resources are not unlimited. The good news is that while the amount of the tithe that looks, if you're looking at the tithe received, which again for those who are new is 8% of your income that you receive, you submit a report to Griselda every month and submit that number to the annual conference, and that funds the operations. If you look at the number we received, it looks way off, but that's because it includes all those churches who disaffiliated, but we were still members of the annual conference, and depending on when they were leaving. But the good news then is that the percent contributed by churches remaining was slightly above historic averages. And we know that there are churches who are doing a tithe plus, giving 8% plus more in order to support the operations of the annual conference. And we give you thanks for your faithfulness. And I will also take this moment to thank all of our local church treasurers. Somebody just said, 30 minutes for finance. I hope no one ever asked me to be treasurer, and she's exactly right. My first church was outside of Boston. The church treasurer was a CFO at a Fortune 500 company. And he said doing the books and doing that accounting was easy compared to doing the accounting at the local church. So to our treasurers, to our finance committee members, thank you for your work. And so for those who are not here, when you go back to your local church, seek them out and thank them for their work. I'd also like to thank Griselda Sandoval, who's the conference treasurer, for her work. Her work has expanded greatly in the past 2 years with everything that's been happening, and she not only responded with excellence, but usually with a smile. So thank you, Griselda. And thank you to the members of the CFNA for your hard work, and welcome to those who will be joining us in the coming year. And so with that, we have some resolutions to be dealt with before moving on to approving the 2025 budget and spending plan. The first of those are 4 resolutions that worked up to clean up the language of conference rules or update some items. You'll find them on pages 81 and 82 of the pre-conference journal entitled Resolutions to Change Conference Rules Regarding the Council on Finance and Administration. One of those is to increase travel and expense allowances, which have been not updated in many, many years. We don't even know when they were last updated. A second is to change language around our credit card policy for conference staff. The third changes the names of the banks that we use, many of which no longer exist. And the final changes who serves on the Conference Investment Committee, removing the president of the board of directors of TMF because the conflict of interest policy this body passed last annual conference, and adding in the chair of pension and health benefits because they have substantial holdings for the conference as well. So Bishop, I put those 4 motions before the body for vote.
You've been able to read this beforehand, before arriving. You've had some opportunities to catch John or other members of the Finance Committee or Griselda with any questions. Are we ready to vote on these resolutions? First of all, I'm going to just a test of hands. Are we all right with voting on all 4 of these together as one vote? If you'd say yes, and those opposed. If you would support then these resolutions, would you raise your hand? And those opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Last year, as part of our report, we said that we were going to have to redo the salary formula that is used for the clergy members of the cabinet to present it at this annual conference because of the disaffiliation of those churches and the impact it would have. So you'll find that resolution starting on page 79 of the pre-conference journal. The formula we have been using, which I believe was set in 2011, so it's been pretty stable for a good run, but our realities of that formula have changed dramatically, thus the call for a new formula to be used. So as you'll see in that motion, the old formula set the salary of clergy cabinet members at 89% of the average of the total compensation for the top 5 clergy in each district. Total compensation is cash salary, reimbursables, housing allowance, or the parsonage allocation that we use for retirement purposes. Your CFNA went through several different iterations of trying to create a new formula that we thought would be fair and equitable, that would also hopefully last for several years, although the resolution calls for CFNA to evaluate every year and present a change to the annual conference if that is called for. Our resolution calls for a new formula to be set at 107% of the top cash salaries of the top 5 appointed clergy in the conference. So the difference, the old one was 89% of salary, reimbursable, and housing, total compensation. This is 107% of just salary itself, right? So we're, again, not apples to apples anymore. And it also stipulates a beginning date for that salary to take effect, which would be July 1st of the conference year, which was not part of the old policy. And it also changes the language around housing allowance to make the housing allowance 25% of the DS salary. So again, CFNA went through lots of different iterations of this to try to find what we thought was best for that. The real results of this would be that the DSs will receive a slight increase in pay over what they currently receive from the old formula, which we felt was appropriate since they have now taken on the role also of the provost, so increased work, but only a slight increase in pay. And there will be a decrease in the housing allowance paid to the Albuquerque District Superintendent, who's the only one who's receiving housing allowance. So Bishop, I put that motion before the floor for a vote.
All right, this comes from a committee and does not require a second. If you would support this resolution, would you raise your hands? And those opposed? And it's approved.
Thank you. The district superintendents, thank you as well. And we're getting there. Our next resolution may be found starting on page 80 of the pre-conference journal. It is in regards to how we fund the budget and spending plan for the conference, which, if approved, would begin for the 2026 calendar year. This resolution, if passed, would represent a fundamental change in the funding of the conference spending plan. And I will note that we have made some fundamental changes in the past to how we fund the annual conference, so this is a road we have gone down before, and we all survived. I know change is hard, but things can happen. When we voted to adopt the tithing model in 2015, it required us to rethink and refine the financial life of the conference. It changed us from operating by CFNA setting what we thought our expenses were going to be in the coming year, and then just allocating that money out to the churches for you to support. The tithing model changed that so that our budgets would be realistic and whose bottom line could not be greater than 8% of the aggregate of the total income reported on line 52 of the annual statistical report, which is why that continued decrease has concerned CFNA for a number of years. One of the overall purposes of the tithing model and that funding was to increase the transparency between us and the conference and you in the local church. And I believe we have done that, and we have seen the fruit in the local church's participation in the tithing model, which was much higher than it was in the previous shared ministry model, in submitting the monthly reports and paying 8% of reported income to support the operations of the annual conference, as well as then paying the pension and health benefit line as well. However, the changing reality of the budget and spending plan has grown increasingly unsustainable. CFNA has gone through and made cuts to the spending plan every single year since I joined CFNA in 2012. And the current spending plan is down 41% from the budget we presented in 2014. We are now past the point where CFNA can continue to make cuts annually that make a difference on the bottom line. A couple of $1,000s here and there is not really changing where we are. For many years in our report to the annual conference, we have been making you aware that some significant decisions will have to be made around funding the ministries and missions of the annual conference, and we didn't want to be the ones to have to make them. We want them to be made by the annual conference. So as we have been going through disaffiliation and the ramifications financially for the annual conference, I have informed the cabinet when they've asked where we are, what we can do, that we could continue to fund the annual conference at basically current levels through 2026. But that would also likely wipe out our reserves if we did that level through 2026, leaving us to make critical decisions then. But we don't want to get to that point. And so although this theme of this conference is using RE words, there is one RE word we want to reject, and that is reactive. We instead are encouraging the conference to be proactive, to have the conversations about changes we want to make in advance, rather than having to scramble at the last moment to react to the financial realities that face the annual conference. Again, additionally, CF&A does not want to be the ones making decisions about what ministries and missions we cut because we can no longer afford them, and what we fund. We want the conference to make those decisions. As we have watched the financial numbers in the conference decrease over the last decade or so, your CF&A have been in conversation about how we deal with these new realities and what the best way forward would be. In his opening message, Ross Whitaker said we need to be asking different questions or perhaps looking for new possibilities. And so CF&A have been in conversation for multiple years, even before disaffiliation, and we talked through several alternatives of how we fund the operations of the annual conference, as well as when that might be implemented. We believe that the time is now. And so your CF&A is unanimously proposing that we change how we fund the operations of the annual conference starting in the 2026 financial year. The bottom line of this motion is that we will fund the annual conference's spending based upon the income we receive in the prior year. And so the resolution has several parts. One is that change again starts in 2026, but to help us to get to that point is that we are asking that from July 1st of this year to December 31st, we will set aside all the money that we receive as the tithe from the local church, excluding that is for pension and health benefits, that we will set that aside into separate bank accounts. And then from January 1st to December 31st of 2025, we will set aside half of all the funds we receive and put it into that same bank account. That bank account then would fund the budget for 2026. It would sort of put a hard cap on the funding of the annual conference. We only spend the money we received in the prior year, plus funds we receive from other sources such as endowments, as well as our reserve funds. Our estimate is that we will have around $1.1 million for the 2026 budget and spending plan. This would represent another significant cut from our current plan of about $300,000. But the most crucial part of this plan is that we are asking the annual conference to spend the next 12 to 18 months, shorter the better, to make decisions about what we fund and at what levels for the annual conference. Again, this is not a decision CF&A wants to make on your behalf. This is where we get to be proactive. We also would recommend this is not just a conversation for the cabinet or the leadership of the conference. It is not just a conversation for the clergy. It is not just a conversation for the laity. It will take all of us to put forth that vision of who we are going to be and what we are going to do and how it gets funded by the annual conference or by other sources. And so we, as your CF&A, unanimously believe this is the best way for the financial future of the New Mexico Annual Conference. And Bishop, we put that motion for the funding before the floor.
Thank you. Again, you've had the opportunity to review this. Are we prepared to vote? If you would approve this recommendation from the Council of Finance Administration, would you raise your hands? And those opposed? I think the thing I would want to comment on this is it's not like you and I or I coordinated with CFA in terms of what I said at my opening message, but this is exactly what we need to do. I mean, it's exactly consistent with where we need to go. In my opening remarks, I shared the notion that we've got to spend some real time rethinking what are the essentials of annual conference. And to distinguish those and have some sense of consensus about that so that we're not propping up the very things that we need to be letting go of. And the sooner that we can become clear about that what are the 2, 3, 4 things that are most essential for the annual conference, then the sooner we can address those with effectiveness and with better stewardship, but also we can figure out how to do some of those other things that maybe are not absolutely essential but are beneficial to the annual conference. So thank you for this proposal.
And thank you for your support, Bishop. We wrote our report before the bishop said that, so we were not pigtail on his
I wrote my report before you wrote your report.
The final vote for this afternoon is on the 2025 budget and spending plan, which you'll find starting on page 17 of the pre-conference journal. And I'm trying to make this quick, but a quick explanation for those who are new to gathering of the annual conference. We present 2 different sets of numbers for approval at each annual conference. By discipline, we are required to propose a budget that funds the general and jurisdictional church at 100%. So the budget not only includes funding the general and jurisdictional church at 100%, it also represents what we might spend if every single church were to send in 100% of their tithe, which is our desired goal, but one we have not yet reached. We're moving on to perfection. The spending plan, on the other hand, is our best guess on what income we will receive and what we believe that those program areas will actually be able to expend. So this is our transparency to everyone in the conference. We set the spending plan this year to pay out 55% of the amount allocated by general and jurisdictional church. Our 2025 numbers that we just received after general conference are roughly the same as what you see there, but if you look at the 2024 numbers, you'll see there's a significant decrease between the general and jurisdictional numbers for 2024 and 2025. One final note is that while it does look like this spending plan is an increase over the current year at $1.9 million, that is only because of the $484,000 you see there right under the income line that we have budgeted to set aside for the motion you just approved for 2026. Otherwise, it represents a $232,000 decrease over 2024. So, Bishop, I present what we believe is a reasonable 2025 budget and spending plan to the annual conference for vote.
Thank you. This is properly before us, comes from a committee, needs no second. Question over here, microphone 2.
Bishop Doug Mills, Elder Trinity First in El Paso. I think this is a question of information. So the conference ministry team has suspended the work of the equipping, engaging, and envisioning ministry committees. So in the 2025 budget and then spending plan, those 3 things are still listed. Will that money, does CFNA want to recommend shifting that money to conference ministry teams or what?
My guess is that's probably what will happen. Again, that decision had not been made at the time that we put the budget numbers together. And so I will, to a degree, leave that to CMT and the cabinet to, if those funds need to be removed to a different budget line to do that, or we just don't expend those monies in the coming year.
So I don't want to be the one to speak for nominations that kind of brought that recommendation. It wasn't to cease the functions of those so much as to say some of those have not been working, have not been active, and to give time to evaluate Do we need it in that same form, or do we need to think of another form for achieving some of those things that are important? So I think it may be a mix of removing some of that money, but also redirecting it in a way that is more actively engaged with the ministries of the conference.
Yeah. Did we vote?
Oh, no, I guess we have not. So, so the budget is before us. If you would support this recommendation for the 2025 budget, would you raise your hands? And those who would not. And it's approved.
Thank you again. And Bishop, with your indulgence, I'm going to ask for just a moment to be a little more vile myself.
Okay.
And I'm wearing my Pentecost red shirt in preparation for ordination this evening. And this will be the first ordination, as was said earlier, in which everyone is available to be ordained. I've been participating in ordination services for more than 20 years. And other than the service where I was ordained 12 years ago, I have never worn a robe in recognition of those who were denied the ability to wear a robe. And tonight, for the first time in more than 20 years, I will wear my robe to an ordination service. Please, please come tonight to celebrate our ordinands, those who are moving forward in ordination, as well as that call to the ministry. Please come and support the church this evening.
Thank you.
So I thank you for your time, your energy, your consideration. I know that what we just did was a lot. It might take some time to process. If you have further questions after this, please contact me, contact Griselda at the conference office. We'd be happy to answer questions. I also want to thank you for your continued financial support of the annual conference. And as I'm sure, let me close with this. The author Richard Paul Evans, who some of you have probably read, said he was visiting a vineyard in Italy that made fabulous wine, and while he was there, he said that the vines looked spectacular. They had enormous grapes on them, and so he's visiting with the vintner, and he said, "You must have great soil to make such good grapes." And the vintner said, "No. In fact, the better the soil is, the worse the vines and the grapes are." He said, "You need bad soil to grow the best grapes, because in bad soil, the vines have to work harder, they have to send out more roots, and they have to send their roots out farther in order to gather the nutrients they need to survive and to grow. And because of this struggle to survive, they thus thrive and produce the most and best fruit." And so I'll say, Bishop, when I first heard that, I thought, yeah, that'll preach. And if we add in the need to prune, which is also scriptural, we know the fruit can be even better. And so if you remember nothing else from our financial picture, remember this story and think that's where we are. Our challenges are not threats, they are opportunities. Opportunities to rethink, renew, restore, and reach out even further in our work for furthering the kingdom of God. Because Jesus did not say that we'll be known as his disciples because we've balanced our budget, as important as that is. He said that we would be known by the love that we show and the fruit that we produce. Our finances are simply resources to help us to produce fruit. And how we do that is up to us. And most importantly, up to being connected to the movement of the Spirit, moving in our communities and calling us to do the work that God has set forth for us. And with that, Bishop, I move to accept the remainder of our report, found as on pages 13 through 25 in the pre-conference journal. And thank you to all of you for your faithfulness.
Thank you. If you would accept or approve the complete report, would you raise your hands? And those opposed, and that's done. So John, thank you for your good work. Thank you for your thoughtfulness. I know that this has been challenging work. I'd like those who serve on CFA, if you would please stand. Let's express our appreciation to these folks. And Griselda, would you please stand again and let us express our appreciation to your good work as well. Thank you. We move on to the trustees report, and Steve Wilson from St. Mark's, El Paso will do the presentation for this.
Thank you, Bishop. District superintendents, members, and friends of the New Mexico Annual Conference. The trustees report is found on page 37. But I'm going to talk a little bit about conference insurance, and I know insurance is never a popular topic, except that this year it's been a struggle. We've seen rate increases this year, even non-renewals in some of our churches, and I want you to know the trustees is listening. We hear your concerns. The insurance industry is in a very tough market. We know these rates are challenging for you, and we are doing everything we can to look for options. Please know that we have shopped our conference insurance program with every major carrier still in the market. Brotherhood Insurance lost their A rating, is now a B-rated company because of claims. Guide One is one of the few companies that's still open for business, but their rates were higher than our renewals. And Church Mutual is being very selective on writing new business. Arch is out of the church insurance market completely. NSM is out. Glitfitler, AIG, they're all flat in underwriting current books of business and being very selective on new accounts. We're not alone in this. Excuse me. North Texas, Rio Texas Conference, they're facing the same situations. Non-renewals, higher rates, higher deductibles are the common denominator. We've had conversations with Rio Texas Conference about possibly forming one large group for increased buying power. And we've also talked with the broker to get a better understanding of what the Arkansas Conference is doing to control costs. Please know that we are exploring every opportunity we can find, and everything is on the table. We're asking carriers to rethink how they provide coverage and to reevaluate our current program. Here's what we can do. Conference trustees will reimburse all churches within the current insurance program 17% of their annual 2024 property and casualty premium. We expect to have those reimbursements out to you no later than August 1st. These reimbursements will also apply to our churches that were non-renewed and had to go out and find coverage on their own. Trustees does not have the financial resources to do this every year, but we know these are struggling times, and we want to help where we can. In the meantime, we'll continue to look at all options. We've heard your concerns, and we're not going to wait until March to come up to look for a solution. Help us keep our claims and loss controls in check. That makes us a more attractive market to other carriers. Keep your safe sanctuaries policies up to date. Take advantage of the free risk control resources like the intruder alerts, the water detectors, the smoke alarms that are available free through Church Mutual. And together we'll get through this. Bishop, that concludes my report to the annual conference, but I will stick around and answer a question that was presented yesterday.
Yesterday, a question was raised about churches that may wish to consider disaffiliation after the 2023 deadline.
Yes. So, as you know, the paragraph 2553
yes.
has expired. The discipline has always provided a direction on separation and closure. The trustees begin drafting some guiding disaffiliation language last year, and we will pick that back up, and following the discipline and the many paragraphs that relate, so that we can get something drafted and put together this year just as quick as possible.
Thank you. I'm going to add my own little editorial word on that. Having been through these last couple of years and not just seeing the effects in the Rio Texas Conference, the New Mexico Conference, but also just in conversations with bishops from across the denomination, there have been churches that have voted to disaffiliate. There have been churches that came close to voting to disaffiliate but fell short. There have been churches that voted and fell way short of disaffiliation. The one thing that I think most bishops would say, and this isn't out of self-interest, is that almost every time a church takes a vote, the church is weaker. Okay? Because even if it's 80% one way or 20% the other, there are people in that church that never feel like they have the same relationship to that church as they had before. So I would just caution before going in and saying, well, now that General Conference, let's try to take a vote again, because it will weaken your church. Thank you, Steve. D.G. Hollums is chair of the New Church Development Committee, and he has a report he wants to share with us.
Well, I've got great news. Yeah.
That's why we saved you till last.
Yeah, well, I know my wife is following me after this. Well, hey, I am so honored. D.G. Hollums, I'm at Zia United Methodist Church in Santa Fe and also soon to pick up Las Vegas. It is my honor to be able to come and be a part of our family of the annual conference. Just seeing every single one of you, man, I wish I could give you all a hug right now. I love y'all. I just love you so much, and I want you to know that we are doing the heavy lifting work of loving the people that would never step foot into any of our churches. And we recognize and realize that when it comes to the essentials of annual conference, that ministering to those people that would never step foot into a church, that's what we're doing. That is what we feel is our responsibility in this team. And we want to be even more like Wesley, to be just a little bit more vile. Just a little bit more vile. You can be able to find our report on page 39. You are welcome to read that. I do want to encourage you to read that. We have some very amazing things going on with New Church. And we have taken in a lot of the responsibility for what I like to call the faithful remnant of people that their churches have decided to disaffiliate, and yet they wanted and desired to remain United Methodist. And they were proud of that fact. And they said, we want to still be in this family, and we love being a part of this family. And so the New Church Congregational Development Team has decided to say, hey, well, we're going to be the place. We're going to be the place that's going to do the best we can to support you, love you, care for you, provide finances to you if you even need it, all of those kinds of things. And a lot of people told me before I ever stepped up here, Rosalie was telling me, hey, people want to know about those churches. But before I get to those churches, I want to express to you that we've actually made some pretty massive changes when it comes to the current church plants that we have in our conference. One of those is Exile. It is the beer church that we were talking about. If you would like to find more information about Exile, you can go to x-ile.com, and you can be able to see all the amazing ministry that they do. Everyone should have on their tables this wonderful newsletter from Good Medicine Way. This is another church plant that we have that's in our conference, doing amazing ministry to Native American individuals. But we've realized as a New Church Congregational Development Team that the majority of the funds that these two communities need are going to have to come from outside of the community. The majority of the funds that they need to be able to be in ministry are going to have to come from outside of the very people that they're ministering with. And because of that, we have decided to make a shift. We are going to be able to shift those church plants into missional communities. So what that means is they're going to need your support for them to be able to continue to do the amazing ministry that they are doing. And so I tell people that it's important for us to realize the missions that we have in our conference. Missions that have some been around for well over 100 years. And so we have decided that we as New Church Congregational Development Team, this has all happened after we wrote the report here, but we have decided that we're going to support Good Medicine Way in Exile by providing them not only a bookkeeper for them to actually be able to trust their finances and feel good about that, but we're also going to match up to $75,000 per year for 3 years. That's a clap. Yeah, that's a clap, yeah. So what that means is you're going to waste the money that they could be able to receive if you're not giving money to them. Do you hear that?
Say that again.
Yeah. You're going to be wasting away the money that they could be receiving in matched funds if you are not supporting them financially. So I want every single pastor here, every single layperson here, I want you to go back to your churches. I want you to say, hey, I want to sit down with the finance chair, and I want to figure out how we can be able to give $50, $100, $2 billion, whatever you have in your budget. Josh, I know, has $2 billion in his, yeah. But what I would like for us to seriously consider is to be able to say, listen, we have an amazing four-corner Native American ministry that is doing amazing things, and new life is being injected into that ministry. It's amazing. New life is being injected into McCurdy Ministries. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a really super happy husband of the executive director. New life is happening. The Holy Spirit is moving in new and amazing ways. And I need for us to be able to add to that list Exile and Good Medicine Way. So I am begging you, if you need me to crawl, I will. Make it crawl, Pete, yeah. If I need to rekindle the fire, like Bishop, I felt so bad for your knees when you did that. We have got to support the ministries that are loving on the people that cannot depend on the people that they're loving to financially support them. So I am begging you. I'm begging you to take serious, to go back to your churches and say, how can we support these 4 missions that are in our conference? Literally here with us. How can we support them to show them they are loved, they are cared for, and we don't want to see them going away anytime soon? So, I'm begging you, please do that, because those are wonderful, amazing ministries that need our support. Now, everyone has come to me, and I mean almost every one of you, that were so worried about Hobbs and about Carlsbad because they knew that that church voted to disaffiliate. And I get to tell everyone there is a faithful remnant of people that have not even asked us for 1 cent, that are living out their faith in amazing, truly God-given ways. And it is unbelievably beautiful. And so instead of me just telling you how awesome they are, I've invited representatives from both of those communities to come up and to be able to share with you how God is at work despite disaffiliation. How God is going to be blessing those communities and how we can be able to support them with love and care. Now, I know that the cabinet and I know that NCD has plans to be able to truly be able to help to grow the leadership in both of those churches. We have people that are right in the middle of discernment of how and where they want to go as far as clergy leadership in both of those places. But I just want you to hear from them. So I don't know who wants to come up first.
Since we started them off.
All right, okay, all right. Stephanie, come on up. So we're going to hear from Carlsbad now.
I'm Stephanie Harmon, retired elder, serving in New Mexico.
Susan Garcia from Carlsbad.
Good afternoon, Bishop, brothers and sisters of the New Mexico Annual Conference. I bring you greetings from United Methodist Church, Carlsbad. Thank you, Reverend DG, for inviting us to share with you a bit about what's been happening this past year. Bishop, in your message yesterday, I taped it or recorded it so I could quote. You described perfectly how this new fellowship began, as did the church camp of your youth and our certified lay ministry program. We began because two people came together who shared a common vision and a common passion, who also saw a need and began to work on it. And my partner in this was not able to come to annual conference. My partner in ministry is Holly Harris, a special education teacher. Our shared passion is to offer compassion and care to those who are marginalized, shunned, unwanted, and unseen. Our shared purpose is to share the extravagant generosity of boundless grace that we know Jesus freely offers to all of God's children. The need was created due to, as you've already heard and known, the disaffiliation of the two then United Methodist churches. And I had deleted this, but I'll put it back in. They had the nerve to vote on the same day, which happened to be my birthday, and I got really mad. And so that afternoon, I texted Holly and said, we need to talk. And then Monday, began our conversations with the conference. I had become a United Methodist as a young mom, and the understanding of God's grace through the United Methodist lens has been and is the core of my being. And Carlsbad needs the United Methodist witness of grace. If you know southeastern New Mexico, you know that. So God moved me out of retirement a second time and moved a special education teacher to add another role to her life. Bishop, you also later described that it's in creating the most supportive environment that allows seeds to grow and flourish. And that is exactly what you, Josh Corey, Steve Wilson, the Conference Board of Trustees, Craig Cockrell, Pam Rowley, Ross Whitaker, D.G. Hollums, Griselda Sandoval. Man, we love you. You are so good to us. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anyone else by name. You have all created a supportive, most supportive environment by allowing us to use an empty building across the street from Carlsbad's community kitchen and guiding us, funding repairs at the beginning, offering us wisdom, encouragement, and the freedom to experiment. Last year, Holly and I made house calls to every person and household that we knew of that had just lost their church home. We explained that God had planted a shared mission separately in our lives over the years, but now God had drawn us together to do this. And the mission included being an open and affirming flock. Holly and I had an agreement that we would give it a year to see if there was enough interest and support. And the good news, thanks be to God, there is. United Methodist Church Carlsbad just celebrated its first anniversary on May 21st. The folks that I call my flock have joined us in our vision and passion and mission. When we reviewed the budget in January for the upcoming year, I have never seen a church put that much percentage of their money in the budget to mission over anything else. It is their priority. Their time in service shows this. Their time in worship shows the foundation for all they do and all they are is in God. 3 months after we worshiped in our new home, these folks worked out a plan and started feeding the hungry every Sunday after worship. The community kitchen does not serve on Sundays, nor on Tuesdays. We knew we could do Sundays to start. 3 of the Sundays we offer cold sack lunches, and on our monthly potluck Sundays, we share our hot meals with our neighbors. Last winter, we also supplied numerous sleeping bags, tarps, coats, gloves, hats, blankets, and dog food. Our church is already moving toward its next goal, which is a goal they started dreaming towards in February or March, to make our kitchen a commercial-grade kitchen so that we may prepare hot meals every Sunday. To do this, we'll pass the food handler's license tests and meet the health department qualifications and inspections. And on June 22nd, we will host our first Pride event with our co-sponsors, First Christian Church Disciples of Christ and St. Peter Evangelical Lutheran Church. To let our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters know they are not alone in a community where they are routinely degraded, belittled, and shunned. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Annual Conference. You have rekindled my fire, and you have rekindled the United Methodist flame in Carlsbad. Thanks be to God.
I don't know how much time I ever got, but we're not done yet. I told you there's going to be some good news. I told you. Next up, I'd like to be able to invite Karen, who's going to be able to talk to us some more about Hobbs and the United Methodist presence in that town. Come on up, Karen.
Wow. My name is Kim Portillo, and I'm from Hobbs. And our story is a little different than Carlsbad because I'm not sure why, Bishop, but there are no retired clergy in Hobbs, America. I don't know why y'all won't retire there. So when our second vote went through and we disaffiliated, we didn't have a retired clergy to call on. So a group of members who knew that I was very adamant about remaining United Methodist came to me and said, "What are you going to do?" So we set about finding a place where we could meet and organizing ourselves. And luckily, we have a Covenant hospital in our community, and Covenant Hospital is owned by Presbyterian and United Methodists. And they have United Methodists that sit on their board of directors. So we went to them and said, "You don't use your conference rooms on Sunday. Can we use them?" And they were very, very enthusiastic about allowing us to do that. So we have a beautiful facility that we don't pay rent on. And we organized ourselves and started meeting, and I sort of told Pam we were doing this and sort of apologized later. And so we got started, and I am, as of May, a retired teacher, so I don't have all your training. So they put up with a lot of slideshows where I tell them why they should be Christians, and they tell me you need to not be a teacher. So we've gotten through, and I would add, Bishop, to your REs, we call ourselves the remnants from Isaiah 10, verse 20, because all of us that are meeting there now have been lifelong United Methodists, married in United Methodist Church, baptized all of our children and our grandchildren there. So we don't feel like we're a new anything yet. But what we have found is a new empowered love from Christ and from you. We have had ministers from all over the state coming to us and preaching. Pam did our Easter service, which was wonderful. If you haven't heard Pam preach, she's awesome. And then we've had DG and Josh, and we've had one, Zach, and he's now in Montana, but he does it through video. We have Greg Kennedy does video messages for us. We just have a plethora of pastors, and our congregation loves it because all of the different styles and the different ways that we have of presenting and doing communion, and they don't have to listen to me. So they're very happy with that. So we've had a wonderful start. We've had donations from St. John's, gave us hymnals, and they gave us a baptismal font, which we can't use yet, but we will. And we have a communion set, and we got paraments from the historian today and candlesticks. Dara gave us the most beautiful altar cross. So we've had all of these donations and wonderful outpouring. I get at least a dozen messages from some of you every week, encouraging me and telling me to pass on to my congregation that you're there and that you're praying, and we feel that. I want you to know that we feel your love and your support, and it means the world to us. Just a few months ago, we felt like the most bedraggled group of people you'd ever seen, with no home and not sure what we were going to do. And you have lifted us up, you have carried us through your prayers, and you have become our family, even though we don't know you personally. And I can't think of any other denomination I would ever want to be that would have the love and the understanding, the compassion, and just the support for all of the things that we've grown up believing and didn't want to give up. So I appreciate you, and some of you are going to be hearing from me when I can find an address to email or write to you about coming and giving us a sermon, because we love having you come or videotape a sermon for us. It's just amazing to see all the different ways of receiving messages. It's wonderful. And I hope that we can see all of you at various times. And feel free to come by the hospital and check out our New Covenant United Methodist Church of Hobbs. We did decide on a name. So, thank you.
Thank you.
It is so good to know that we are not alone. I only have two more things I want to talk about, and it's not going to be long, I promise. But I remember when TMF was talking about how they're doing this deep research into finding out how we can be able to create authentic community through online ways. We've already been doing that. Take that. If anyone knows Amy with Curio Life, she's actually in the middle of trying to figure that out right now. So they're gonna probably come to us with advice and what they should do. But Amy has been doing some pretty amazing work, and I want you to read all about the research. We actually decided as an NCD that the church has forgotten to have an R&D department. And so we said, well, you know what? If that's going to be the case, then let's actually put some money where our mouth is, and let's actually experiment. Let's actually do research so we can actually throw out these experiments to be able to find what will stick and the flesh of Christ can be able to be revealed in the midst of the world we live in. So I want to make sure I mention Curio Life. And then the last thing is the amazing news that I get to share is starting this year at a certain time that I'm not going to tell you when exactly, and I'm not even going to tell you who because I don't think I can. But we are going to have a brand new church plant in Alamogordo, New Mexico. So it has become a United Methodist desert, and we're going to change that. We're going to change that. So I want to encourage everyone and thank everyone for your prayers, your support, your gifts, your service, your witness. I'm used to saying that all the time. But I really, truly want to give you the greatest gratitude, spiritual hug that I can for the ways in which you support God doing new things, God doing amazingly wonderful new things in the life of you. All of these are hands and feet and voices of Christ that you are holding up. You are holding up those arms. So thank you. I love you all.
Thank you, DJ. Thank you very much. And we're going to move now to the Wesleys, Elizabeth Kirkwood and Lisa Blaylock, and I think they're going to have some assistance in this, it looks like. So we look forward to what you have to share with us.
Good afternoon, Bishop. Good afternoon, DSs and Albuquerque, New Mexico Annual Conference. I'm Elizabeth Kirkwood. I am currently serving the Eastern New Mexico Wesley Foundation, and I've just completed my 10th year. So the gentleman that's standing in the wings is Dustin Burrow. He is one of my alumni, but not my alumni. But he helped us move when we came. So I wanted to share a few things with you this afternoon. I bring greetings from Eastern New Mexico. As we speak, 14 African students are using our Wesley kitchen for a supplement for summer lunches while they work on campus. We have 75% international students, 25 US. Do we have the video? There we go. I'll just keep talking until it's fine. I do want to share some things with you. After General Conference, myself, I received several videos and messages why I shouldn't stay a United Methodist. And it wasn't good, and it wasn't pretty. I was told some pretty hateful things, and I was even told that I'm serving Satan's church. And they asked me why I stayed and why I'm staying. Well, I stayed for the young man who was divorcing his wife and didn't know what he was going to do. We stayed for the moms who left their husbands and children who came here from Africa for a better education. I stayed for the young man whose mom brought him here to us from Nigeria. She didn't bother to tell us that he was just diagnosed with high-functioning Asperger's. We mentored him. He graduated early and he came back after COVID. He graduated again with his master's degree in communications. These are our Samoan students, and she just went past it. It's okay, it's fine. Then the day came, and I had the same conversation with him that Ross had with his youth student. He said, I really need to talk to you. I said, okay, I already knew what was coming. He says, well, you know I'm from Africa. And I said, yes, I know. And he goes, well, Miss Kirkwood, I need to tell you that I'm gay. And I said, I know. He said, you knew? How did you know? And I said, I just knew. He is now in Connecticut with one of our other students. He is getting his doctoral in communications, and he wants to teach students that are like him. Last year, our grant writer was struck with a stroke really bad, He was locked out of his computer and his wife couldn't get back in, so we gathered all the grants that we had, and he wrote our grant for the endowment committee this year. And we got the grant. The good news about that grant is we've just about spent all of the money because we are reaching that many students, and we are helping that many students. We go through 8 dozen eggs every week and a half. We go through at least 10 pounds of bananas every week, apples, oranges, rice, noodles. If you want to know how to make rice and ramen noodles, the Ghanaian students can show you. There's 101 ways. So, he put together our brochure. He did a lot of stuff for us, and he's still connected to us even though he's an alumni. So that's why I stayed. It's not a job, it's a calling. So with that being said, we have new district lines. We are in your district now. Think about us when you look at your mission and ministry. We are having to realign ourselves and go back to the endowment committee and ask for more money because, like I said, we're reaching more students. We see about 35 students during the school year on Wednesday lunch, but actually it's about 50 because we have lunch from 12 to 2. We have about 20 students on Sunday night. We are the only campus ministry on campus that stays open through the week. None of the others do. So, you can find our report on the Conference Journal from page 47 to 49. I want to thank you all for letting us speak. I have a student that's going to speak real quick, and then Lisa. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, conference.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Conjetta Finley, and I've been at ENMU now for 2 years, and of course we get the email, come have lunch. So I came and had lunch, and I've been hooked ever since with the open arms, the welcoming, the diversity, and the friendships that I've built there. And I really appreciate all of y'all's help in funding the Wesley and letting us be there for our community and our other ENMU students.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Lisa Blaylock. I'm the director of the Wesley Foundation here in Albuquerque at the University of New Mexico. And I want to thank you, Bishop, and thank you, Annual Conference, for supporting the Wesley Foundations throughout the state. Your support is very meaningful to us and to the students that we serve. So I hope I have a video back there that I'd like to play for you all. One of the things that I've learned in the 2 years that I've been doing Wesley Foundation ministry is you have to say goodbye to students after they graduate, and that's really hard. So I've had 5 students graduate this year, but I've had 2 of you come and stop me during a conference and say, I have a daughter that's coming to UNM, will you call her? And the answer is yes, we will call. If you tell us you know someone, anyone from your churches or your family that are going to any of the New Mexico schools, please let us know. We would love to contact them and invite them to be a part of our ministries and a part of your ministry. So I just want to say again, thank you. Thank you for supporting the Wesley Foundations and those students that are being nurtured and fed through our ministries. So thank you.
Thank you.
Two things I forgot. Brian had to leave abruptly yesterday. He is the Wesley director at New Mexico State. I guess his wife had some minor surgery and she needed him home. 2, thank you. Thank you for taking the offering and making it all about us this year. I appreciate that so much. I have been waiting for this, and we just cannot tell you how much we are so blessed and grateful for this. James is somewhere hiding, and he is at El Paso. He didn't want to come up here, but he's going to be joining me at Eastern. He's going to be at Portales First United Methodist Church. So we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So I'm looking forward to working with him and him with me, and he's already started talking up with the students and stuff. But support all of the Wesleys, please. We are important. I even have some students that are finally looking into ministry and whatever direction they go and what they want to do. But we thank you for your support, and thank you for this conference. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you. Tiffany Hollins is the Executive Director of McCurdy, and she's going to share a report with us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you all. I am so incredibly proud to be United Methodist. I am a product of this annual conference. I grew up in Lovington, New Mexico. And with disaffiliations, you all are my church home. And so I'm so grateful for all of you. I first fell in love with McCurdy when I was a young girl with my mom's United Methodist Women's Circle, which is now United Women in Faith. The circle would always meet at our house in Lovington, and I would hear about this magical, mysterious, wonderful place called McCurdy. At that time, it was McCurdy Schools of northern New Mexico, and now it is McCurdy Ministries. I fell in love with the Rio Grande Valley. If any of you have ever been there, it's so beautiful. You have the Rio Grande River, you have mountains, you have colors, and you have beautiful cultures. And that is where I have found my true calling. McCurdy Ministries is 112 years old. It is a national United Methodist mission institution. And currently we have a preschool. We just graduated our preschool class. We have an after-school ministry and a ministry called Project Cariño that offers free mental health counseling to McCurdy Charter School kids and families. So thank you. One of the things that has really touched me as I got to know McCurdy and get to really know the community is how incredibly resilient this place is. That's my word, is resilient. Española Valley is beautiful. There are people there that are artists, that there are generations of weavers and potters and artists. It is a place where family is so deeply important to people. So deeply important that at this point, if statistics are correct, in the Española ISD, 63% of the kids are being raised by their grandparents. One of the things that I have seen again in this community is that they are resilient. When you talk to the kids, they say how much they miss their mom or their dad due to the drug crisis that has ravaged the area. And that is a truth that you can't ignore, right? That drugs have taken their toll. But what I have seen is that families have stepped up, that these grandparents are not even having official custody of their children, because when I arrived in September, there were no CYFD caseworkers in Rio Arriba County. There were no foster families in Rio Arriba County, reaching all the way up to Chama. And so one of the things that the board at McCurdy that we began praying about is where are we needed? Where are the places in the community that the light of Christ that is shown through McCurdy for 112 years is desperately needed? And so I began getting to know people, and what I have found is people have been so incredibly welcoming to me, so informative to me. And as I've gotten to know some of these grandparents that are raising the grandkids, one of the things that they shared with me that they would love to be able to have was clothing, which I thought, that's easy. So I reached out to Locker 505, which actually is an incredible nonprofit that's right across the alley here. They say that people will dump their trash from over here, over there. I reached out to Kim with Locker 505 and asked her, I shared with her what the need is, and she said, great, I'll come and see you next week in Española. So one of the things that we have found is that McCurdy Ministries campus does not have a lack of buildings. We have a plethora of buildings that used to be a school. And now, one of these buildings called the Teacherage, which maybe some of you have come and served there in the Teacherage, we are redesigning it to be Locker 505 McCurdy, which will launch August the 9th. Thank you. We are partnering with McCurdy Charter School, with Española ISD. This past week, I met with the Student Needs Director for Española ISD, and one of the things that she shared with me is there are 3,000 students in Española schools, which circles the surrounding communities as well. There's 3,000 students, 90 of them classify as homeless. So 3,090 homeless. One of the things that she shared with me that they need are places to wash their clothes. And the wheels for me start turning. We have this really strange room in Cole Community Building that has all of these science tables, and I asked Manny, our maintenance angel, Manny, do you think that would be a great place for a laundry room to wash kids' clothes? It is so incredible, you all, to see how God is bringing people to McCurdy and saying, here is something that we have wanted to do in this community, we just need a space. The United Way has moved into our gala basement that was filled with old stuff. We moved that out. New Mexico Ramp Project has moved into our old laundry room. Locker 505 is now moving into the Teacherage. And I am about to sign a $250,000 grant with the state for the Cole Community Building to be a family resource center for the community. So all of this to say, thank you. Thank you for believing in ministry that can happen in what others would say are dark places, but what I am finding are so incredibly full of life and light and hope. For kids that, one of the things that I invite you to pray with me and with McCurdy and with Española about is that you do have a large portion of children that are being raised by grandparents. And they will say that one of the main concerns they have is what happens when they are gone. And so I see that as a need, as a real true calling for McCurdy Ministry, but also for us as United Methodists, is we will be their family. And so I just invite you to pray for us, to think of ways that if you were raising a grandchild, what would you want to put in place for them for when you're gone? And so these are just some of the small ways that we together are sharing the light of Christ in the valley. And I just, again, thank you for your support and your prayers and your encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. We'll receive now the report from the Endowment Committee. Dustin Burrow chairs it.
Good afternoon, Bishop, members and friends of the annual conference. I'm serving as your Endowment Distribution Committee Chair, and it's right? And it is an honor and a privilege to address you today. Our committee is like, do y'all remember Matthew Lesko from like the 90s, late night infomercials, the get the money from the government guy, wore the question mark suit, all that kind of stuff? Y'all remember him by chance? Not really? Okay. Well,
yes, I didn't
well,
stay
that
up
kind of
that
fell
late.
flat, I guess, didn't it? So our committee is in charge of distributing funds that the saints have provided for us to do ministry today. And our committee is dedicated and is diligent to working hard to harness the potential of those resources. And I'm excited to share the fruits of that labor. Firstly, I want to invite you to read my written report that is located on page 11 of the pre-conference journal, which shares a little bit about what we've been up to and also our plans for moving forward. This year has been a particularly thrilling one for us. This is my first year to chair this committee, and it's been a lot of fun. Our committee, again, has been diligently working to support ministries of the local church and other United Methodist organizations. Our committee is dedicated to provide seed money for sustainable, lay-driven ministries that can flourish beyond the 3 years that our committee can fund, or even beyond appointment changes. We believe that we, as a committee, should empower our laity to lead, to innovate, and to be in lasting ministry. Right? Our commitment extends to ministries that build and enhance community bonds and those that simply significantly amplify the church's presence within their neighborhoods. And I'll say now that we are passionate. We are passionate about initiative that transforms lives for both those who minister and those who benefit from these ministries. In 2023, we supported a diverse array of programs, including a suicide prevention outreach, various food ministries, tutoring services, children's programs, sober living retreat, just to name a few. Out of 28 applications we received, each one was a testament to the vibrant spirit and the dedication that is moving within our communities. Looking ahead, we are excited to announce that our application process will open just after annual conference on July 1st and will close on August 1st. As part of this, we're going to hold a webinar and provide checklists that helps this application process. This year, we're going to incorporate Zoom meetings with all of the applicants and all of those who are reporting from previous years, because we want to hear your passion, we want to hear your stories, and we want to hear where your heart is in ministry. You know, I cannot express enough gratitude to the saints who have generously contributed to these endowment funds that this committee oversees. And it is your faith and commitment that fuels our mission. I want you to know that this committee takes this responsibility of stewarding these gifts very seriously as we aim to fund and support the transformative ministry throughout our annual conference. Together with your support and engagement, we can continue to make a profound impact. So let's keep that momentum going. Let's continue to foster a network of ministries that not only meet the immediate needs of our communities, but also pave the way for a future that is filled with hope and promise. New Mexico Annual Conference, thank you for your dedication, thank you for your generosity, and thank you for your vision. Here's to another year of making a difference. Bishop, this ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's finishing strong here this afternoon. I have a couple of announcements. One is that part of the nominations process that falls during quadrennial years is for annual conferences to have the opportunity to nominate people from this conference who will become part of a pool of names that are considered for general conference agency service to serve on our general boards. I have to be honest that the chances are very small for any one person because all of the annual conferences of this jurisdiction will submit many numbers of names, and then out of those, just a few from this jurisdiction will serve on boards like the General Board of Global Ministries, General Board of Higher Education and Ministry, General Board of Discipleship, and so forth. Automatically, those who are elected delegates to General Conference and the alternates are on that nominations list in that pool. But if you would like to nominate yourself or put yourself in that pool, or someone else you know here whose name you would like to lift up, first get their permission, and then submit your name if you're going to nominate yourself or put yourself up for that pool, or the other person's name and contact information, and get that to Rosalie. Rosalie. And to do that in a timely way before mid-morning tomorrow, because by the end of our session tomorrow, we'll put those names, the delegates' names and alternates' names, as well as any other names that people have offered. We're going to put those names on the screen and then approve those for that pool. Those who will end up in that pool, that sounds refreshing, doesn't it? Join the pool. Will then they'll be followed up with Rosalie, who will require you to fill out a form that's exactly that large, that requires a 100-word description of your qualifications and the general board that you'd prefer to serve on, and some other background and information about yourself. So if you want to take that up, submit those names to Rosalie. Also, one of the people we're going to be commissioning tonight is Lisa Jo Besner, and word has come to us that she completed the Gateways to God training in the missional spiritual direction offered by the New England Annual Conference. And this is a 2-year practicum program connected with coursework through the Boston University School of Theology. And so this is a big day for Lisa Jo as far as the service we're going to be going to in a little bit. But Lisa Jo, we also just celebrate with you on this honor of having completed this qualification. I turn again to Rosalie for closing courtesies and announcements.
We're almost done with day 2, and it's been a joy every minute. I wanted to draw your attention to the artwork that we worked on last night. It's hanging on the wall. It looks a little bit different than maybe you left it yesterday afternoon. This is what happens when we all make our mark together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the annual conference and the ministries in New Mexico and Far West Texas. I don't have any announcements. Ordination is at 7. Briefly, please. Thank you, Stephanie. Microphone 4.
Microphone 4, please.
Clergy with cats. We know there are several. We need to have a photo taken together so you know who you are, clergy with cats.
That means nothing to me. I'm assuming it means something to some of you. Okay.
I think also there's the Board of Ordained Ministry dinner.
There is a Board of Ordained Ministry. It's not a free-for-all. You should have received an invitation, but it is going to be in room 149 right on the other side of that wall. I don't think I have anything else. We'll see you at 7 o'clock for ordination. Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you at 7.